Any questions? Anyone have any questions? Yeah, no, also there is no questions.
లాజిక్ అప్డేట్స్ ఉందో సార్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయండి.
Logical operators. Logical, yes, and or operators, right?
అదే
Yeah. So basically these logical operators. So before I go to logical operators, whenever we wanted to apply any filter condition, what we do? Whenever we wanted to apply any conditions, what we do? We have a table. Now, when we wanted to apply a condition, basically we will be using a where condition, where clause, right? Where roll number equal to, let's say 1. Okay. Now, whenever we wanted to apply a filter condition, we are going to use a where clause and then we are going to apply a filter condition. So that whatever the condition that we are going to specify, according to that condition, it is going to give us the result. Now, when we wanted to apply multiple conditions, instead of one condition, when we wanted to apply multiple conditions, then we are going to use these logical operators and or operators. Okay. Now, when we use AND operator, let's say address equal to Chennai. Okay. Now, basically, what AND operator is going to do? So, this AND operator is going to use between multiple conditions, not with a single condition. Between multiple conditions, we are going to use it. When we are going to use it in between multiple conditions, so this AND operator is going to verify for every record, whether these two conditions are matching or not, because this condition is going to apply for each and every row in a table. Now, for every row, whether this condition is satisfying or not, like both the conditions should satisfy. Both the conditions are satisfying or not, it is going to verify. If both the conditions satisfies, then only it is going to give us the result. So meaning, so for every record, it is going to check, this SQL statement is going to check roll number equal to 1 is there, yes, and address equal to Chennai is there, address is Bangalore is there. That means this record is not satisfied. So then roll number 2. First of all, for this condition itself, the records will be filtered out. Okay. Now the second for the second condition, it will look for the records which are matching with the first condition. So all you have to understand is when we use AND operator between multiple conditions, AND operator between multiple conditions means for every record, both the conditions should satisfy. Both the conditions should satisfy. Then only it will give the result. See, I did not get any record because for roll number 1, the address is Bangalore, which is there in the database. So in the database for roll number 1, address is Bangalore, but I have mentioned in the filter condition that Chennai because this is my requirement. So for my requirement, I'm just using address as Chennai. Okay, so I'm not getting any data. For example, when I use Bangalore, when I execute, I'm getting the data because this AND operator is going to verify both the conditions. Now for this record, both the conditions are satisfying and hence it is giving the result. Got it? Understood this AND operator?
Yes, sir.
Next, OR operator. So OR operator is basically, it is going to say, OR operator, it is going to verify any one condition is matching or not. For every record, any one condition should satisfy. Either roll number 1 should satisfy or address equal to Chennai should satisfy. Now, in the table, we have first we'll verify For this record, roll number equal to 1 or not. Yes, it is satisfying. So that it is not going to further check the remaining conditions. When first condition does not satisfy, then only it look for the second condition. If first condition satisfies, then it is not going to look for the other conditions. Now roll number equal to 1. Yes, this record satisfying. Next roll number equal to 1. This condition is satisfying for this record. Then it will look for address equal to Chennai. Yes, address equal to Chennai. This condition is satisfying. For the next record, roll number equal to 1. Condition does not satisfy. Address equal to Chennai. Address also not satisfying. So if any one record satisfying the condition, it will give the data. So in this list, when we see for one record, roll number 1 is satisfying. For the other record, address is Chennai is matching. So that only those two records are coming up as a result. Okay, understood? OR operator, how it is going to work? If any one condition in between the OR condition, in between OR, if any one condition is satisfying, it will give the result. But when we use AND operator, it is going to verify both the conditions should satisfy. If you are going to if you are going to keep 5 conditions, 10 conditions, all the 10 conditions and 5 conditions should satisfy. Understood?
Yes, no.
Yeah. Still, if you don't understand, let me know. I'll take a few more examples and explain. And this not operator, then we right, not equal to, not between, not in. So this is about not. Okay. Now today I'm going to discuss about functions. Okay, so there are built-in functions in SQL. So the SQL database or Oracle Corporation itself. So they are giving some built-in functions in Oracle in the database itself. So for in order to do certain activities, okay. So we don't need to write because SQL is not a programming language, right? It is kind of a query language. But whenever we have certain conditions, so certain conditions to match up, we're going to use built-in functions. Okay, so these built-in functions are categorized into 3 types: row level functions, group level functions, and analytical functions. Row level functions, group level functions, and analytical functions. Okay, so as we know that data in the table resides in the form of yeah. So as we know that in the table the data is in the form of rows and columns. So when we have data in the form of rows and columns, okay, so there are certain functions which are going to deal with row level functions, group level functions, and analytical functions. Row level function meaning, so each and the function whatever we are going to use, that will be applied for each and every row in a table. Row level function will be applied for each and every row in a table. Group level functions are going to be used by forming a groups in the data, and then on top of every group it is going to apply the function. So analytical functions, they are kind of mixing of both row level and group level functions. Okay, so those will be form a group, but it will be applied for every row. Okay, so these functions are going to play kind of major role in the uh, real-time works. Okay, in regular offices, because whenever we deal with the data, whenever we deal with certain requirements, so business says that I wanted this functionality, I wanted that functionality like that. When people are asking for this, the certain conditions. Okay, so we need to remember. We should be able to remember what kind of condition that I will have to use, or what kind of function that I have to use. So that is going to play a major role. Okay. Now these row level functions are again segregated into different types. Okay. Numeric functions. So these numeric functions will be applied on top of the columns with number as data type. Okay. Whenever we create a table, we'll be creating the columns along with the certain data types in which what kind of data is going to be stored in the table. Right. Now the numeric functions are going to be applied on top of the columns with number data type. Next, string functions. They are going to be applied on top of varchar data type. So, first of all, when you wanted to apply a function, you need to see and make sure what type of column it is. What is the data type of this particular column? That is something that you will have to see. If the data type is number, then you will have to apply only the numeric functions. If the data type is varchar, then you have to use only string functions. If the data type is date, then we are going to use date functions. Okay, so there are certain other miscellaneous and conversion functions. So we are going to see all those functions. What are the different functions? See, there are many functions in Oracle. Okay, so as part of the course, I'm going to teach you guys the very important, very important functions. Okay, because these are the functions which we regularly use in real time. So that is the reason these functions are very important, and you should be having knowledge about these functions. Okay, now before I go here, okay, so I wanted to explain a table called dual. Okay, so dual is a dummy table. Okay, dual is a dummy table, and it will not be having any data, and it will not be having any structure. Okay, so this dual function is designed to perform any kind of function validations, or to validate any function, like whether how this function is working. Is this function is really working as per the requirement or not? Okay, to test the functions, so by passing some values to make sure this is giving the expected result, then we are going to use dual table. Okay, in real time also. So when we are going to deal with the data with millions of records, so in order to test certain functionality, or in order to test certain functions, so we are not going to verify on top of the actual table. First we'll be passing some values. First we'll verify the function to make sure this is working fine or not, to make sure this is working fine or not by using a dual table. So if the result is giving in the dual table first, then only we are going to applying on top of the actual tables. Okay. Now every Oracle database or every schema is having by this dual table. This is the default table. This is the start from dual. So this is not having any standard structure. So this will be having, we can perform n number of operations at single point in time. So for all the operations, we'll be able to see the data. Okay. So there is no specific structure for this table. but in the actual tables, we will be having a specific structure. Okay, if this is having 4 columns means when we use select star from table, we are going to see only 4 columns in the result, right? But in dual table, it is not going to have any structure. We can perform n number of function test. The number of functions we can apply here. We can test here. Now, in the numeric functions, so when I'm going to show these functions, right? Mostly, I don't want to use the regular table, so I'm going to show it by using real table itself, because this is how we are going to practice in real time also. Okay, the first function is mod function. So mod function is going to give us the reminder. Okay, mod function is going to give us the reminder. We should pass a value, and we have to pass a divisor with which we have to divide this value. Okay, so we have to pass a value. This is the syntax of mod function. When we are going to use mod function, so this is the value and this is the divisor. So this divisor will be is going to divide this value, and whatever the remainder that is going to come, so that remainder value is going to be coming as an output of the mod function. Mod of 3, 2. What is the remainder for this?
1.
See, the remainder is 1. Mod of 64, 2. What is the remainder? 0. Any even number divided with 2, the remainder is 0, right? 64, 3. The remainder is 1. Okay, 65, 3. Remainder is 2. One simple example for mod function is, so whenever we wanted to decide odd, odd records separately and even records separately, the table is having uh, 1 lakh records or 10 lakh records or 1 million records. When we have millions of data, but I don't want to, I will be having a requirement that, so odd numbers have to separate and even numbers have to separate. Odd number record I have to separate and even number record I have to separate. So that time what we should do, based on the remainder only, we'll be able to identify whether this record is an odd record or even record, right? Now, if the remainder, we have to divide the row number with 2, and if the remainder is 1, then it is an odd record. If remainder is equal to 0, then it is going to be even number. Okay, so we are going to apply this mod function in a where condition, so that it is going to divide the records, odd records into separately, even records into separately. Okay, I think I have explained about is null, not is null, right? So when we have some null values in the table, so how do we identify, how do we filter out null values and not null values? Where subject is null means we are going to get only the records with subject as null, right? Where subject is not null means We are going to get the records with only the subject as not null. Okay. So whenever we wanted to see how many null values in the table or how many not null values in the table, we are going to use this kind of a filter condition where subject is null, subject is not null. Okay. Now when I put that filter, so either I will be getting null values or I am going to get only not null values. But when I put select star from table, I will be getting all the data. But I don't want to see any null value here. I don't want to see any null value. Then we are going to use NVL function. So NVL function is going to use to replace any null value with some X value. But it's not going to affect in the database, but it will appear only in the select statement result. So in the subject, I'm going to keep NVL of subject. So wherever I see subject, I just wanted to get the result as no subject, no subject. So as, whenever we use as, that means alias name of the column. I'm giving subject underscore final as the column name for this because I already have a column name called subject. Okay. So in this, we are not applying any function. Here we are applying function. So when we apply function, when we apply function, so it is going to apply wherever the null value is there, it is going to replace that with no subject. So here we are not applying any function. Let me execute the select step. So whenever you see from keyword not found where it is expected means somewhere some comma is missing by at the end of the column. Okay. So here the first column is subject, which is having direct value which is there in the data. But the second NVL function which is going to give no subject because wherever the subject column is having null value is going to replace with no subject. Let's say I wanted to use social. See, wherever we have null value, it is going to replace with some X value, whatever we are going to define in the function. Okay. So this round function is basically we will be having a value and precision. Okay. So this value, how many decimal points that we wanted. The precision is nothing but how many decimal values that we wanted. So this I think so you already know, right? So rounding meaning like let's say I wanted 2 decimal values means if the next value is 5 or more than 5, it will round it to the previous value. If not, let me execute this. So round off 123.2345. Ideally, there should be some precision value to be defined. If at all we are not going to define any precision, that means I don't want any decimal points. Here I wanted 2 decimal points. Here I wanted 3 decimal points. Sorry, 2 decimal points. But here what is after 2, the value is 4. How it is going to be result? After 2, the value is 5. How it is going to be the result? Because if the after the rounding value, if the value is less than 5, then it is going to just give us the value till here itself. If at all the rounding value, the next value of the rounding value is 5 or more than 5, it will add plus 1 to the previous value. If you see the difference here, 123.23, 123.24. 23 is because the rounding value after the after the two decimal values, the immediate next value is below 5. Because of that, it is just giving till this value only. If the value is more than 5, 5 or more than 5, then it is going to give us, then it is going to add +1 to the previous value. So this is pretty much that you have learned in your school. But only difference is above 5 and below 5 is there, is what we studied. But in Oracle, 5 and above 5 is there, then it is going to add +1, or below 5 is there, it is not going to add any. Okay, so trunc function is basically, it is not going to look for any rounding. Okay, trunc function is going to just trim the how many number of decimal values that we wanted, those many values it is going to trim. Okay, and one more thing. So here positive values, here the negative values. So when we give a positive value as a precision, then it will just trim how many decimal points that we wanted. And when we give negative values, it is going to give ones, tens, hundreds, like that. When I execute this, so -2 means hundreds value, -3 means thousands value. Let's say instead of 100, I'm going to give 200. Say hundreds value, 200. Let's see, 6285, 6225, and I'll just give -3. 236 thousands, because I just put -3. So it means until thousands value, it is going to give us the rate. But in real time, we are not going to use this one. We will never use this one. Okay, because we are going to lose the data here. But here, these two functions we are going to use. So the positive values we are going to use. So what is the difference between round and trunc? So if when we use round function, it is going to add +1 if the next immediate decimal value is 5 or more than 5. In the trunc function, it will just trim the value. It's not going to add +1 to the previous value. If at all, the next value is 5 or more than 5. Okay, so these are some of the numeric functions, and we have string functions. So basically, these string functions, I think you have to practice all the string functions, but I'll tell you what each function is going to do. So init cap of any string value we are going to keep. Init cap of any string value we are going to give. So select star from, select init cap of data warehouse from DL. Init cap means first letter will be capital letter. It will make first letter as capital letter. So if you see in the data warehouse, first letter of every word, will be capital letter. It will make first letter of every word will be capital letter. Next, upper function is going to make uppercase, all capital letters. So lower function is going to make them all lowercase letters. Let's say we have D. DH. So when we use lower function, so it will make everything into lowercase. You see the result, everything it will make into lowercase. Okay, so these upper lower functions, basically when we wanted to apply a filter condition where the column data is having some some records are with uppercase, some records are lowercase, some records are with init cap, some records are with irregular case values. Okay, so in that time what we do, when we wanted to apply a filter condition, we'll be using this upper or lower function with the same value, so that this upper or lower functions are going to convert the entire record set into a single case, and then we are going to apply a filter condition. Okay, so basically the condition should be something like this. Select star from, let's say, student. Now we have the address as address as uppercase only, everything. Okay, let's say Bangalore in lowercase, Bangalore in a different case. Okay, now I have the data in my table like this. When I use select star from table where address is Bangalore, uppercase, Bangalore in lowercase, Bangalore in different case. Now when I apply a filter condition where address equal to Bangalore, we are going to get only one record because Oracle database is a case sensitive database. Oracle database is a case sensitive database. When they are going to use, it is going to always match up with the exact value. Always it is going to look for exact value, exact same value. Now, but when we see in the actual table, we have three records with the same Bangalore address. Now, what we do is we'll be using upper function, upper of, so that in the backend database the value is not going to change, but this upper function will make the value in upper from in this select statement, so that for every record it will make into the uppercase and then it will match up with this value. See, all three records are coming up because when we make it upper, when we make it to the same case, then the value is exactly same for all the records. Because of that, all the records are coming as an output now. Let's say I'm going to use lower. Okay, when we pass the lowercase value, okay, when we use lower function, it is going to make all the records into lowercase and then it will give us the result. Okay, so this is how we are going to use it in real time. Okay, and length function is going to give us how many number of characters are are there in the how many number of characters are there in this particular string value. Okay, and okay, next the next function is rpad lpad functions. Okay, so this rpad and lpad functions are basically, so have whenever we wanted to have all the records length is exactly same. Let's say here we have how many characters? 7 characters. Here we have how many characters? 4 characters. Here we have 5 characters. But in real time, sometimes what is going to happen is, first I wanted the length of all the records should be same. Okay, because I have certain requirement. So for my requirement, I'm going to verify the length so that when I'm going to get the data, so I wanted length of all the records should be same. So in that case, what we have to do? We have to, let's say I wanted all the character length should be 10. So when I wanted all the characters should be 10, what I have to do? I have to add some other extra characters to make sure the length of the entire record is 10. So that we will call it as padding. We wanted to pad some characters either on the left side or on the right side to make sure the entire length of the string value is 10 characters. Okay, let's say I'm going to take this name field. LPad function is going to pad the additional characters on the left side. So I wanted in the name field, I wanted all the length of all the characters should be 10, and for the missing characters, I wanted to add at the rate. Okay, for the missing characters, I wanted to add the character as at the rate. You see here, 3 upgrades are added here because the actual value is 7 characters. So in this case, 6 upgrades are added. In this case, 5 upgrades are added. Now when we see length of this function, see entire length is 10 only because after applying LPAD, so it is adding at the rate symbol. In the same way, we can go with the RPAD also. When go with RPAD, the additional characters will be added at the right side of a string value. So LPAD and RPAD are to add the additional characters to make sure the length of the entire string value should be same. Now when I see the length of it, see the entire length value is 10. So whenever we use multiple functions, first the inside function will execute. Based on the result, the outside function will execute. Okay. So this is how LPAD and RPADs are going to work. So the next is trim function, LTrim, RTrim, and trim functions. Okay. So whenever we have any additional spaces in the data, so when we are entering from the front end application, when business is applying, when business is entering some data, so we'll be entering with some spaces. Now, whenever we have any spaces on the left side or the right side, so to remove the spaces, we are going to use LTrim function. Okay, to remove the unwanted spaces, then we are going to use LTrim function or RTrim function. So LTrim function is to remove the spaces if at all they are in left side. Okay, let's say for this address field, let me add some spaces here. I have added I just added some spaces for one record left side, for one record right side, for one record I have added spaces both the sides. Okay, now when I execute, if you see here, right, this is how the values are. Now when I execute, select star from table, if you see lower of address equal to Bangalore means it is not giving the data because there are spaces added to the address value. Because of those spaces, we are not getting any data. So now when we have to get the data means what we should do? First we should apply LTrim. So LTrim of address value. Okay, LTrim of address. So first what LTrim function is going to do? It is going to remove the spaces which are all there in the left side. Okay, first LTrim function which is going to remove the spaces, and then This lower function will apply. Based on this result, we are going to get the final data. See, we are getting one record because for this record we have the spaces on the left side. For the other record we have spaces both at the right side, and both the right sides we have the spaces. Now when we use rtrim, we are going to get one record for a different record, because for this record right side spaces are there. For one record there are left side spaces, for one record there are right side spaces. So when we want to remove only the spaces from the right side, we are going to use rtrim function. When we are going to remove the spaces on the left side, we are going to use ltrim function. Okay, so sometimes, right, this ltrim function, rtrim function, we are going to use in the select statement also. In select statement also we are going to use it. It is not, there is no hard rule that we are going to use them only in the where condition. Now if you see here, right, we don't have any spaces. I don't have any spaces here because this rtrim function removed the spaces which are there on the right side. But one underlying rule that you have to understand here is, whatever the spaces that we have, so those spaces, whatever the spaces that we have, so those spaces we are going to, those spaces will be removed only in the select statement result. They are not going to apply in the backend database. Okay. Now we do also have trim function. Trim function is going to remove both the spaces, both left side and right side spaces. Trim function is going to remove the spaces, both left side and right side. If you see this value, this is having left side spaces, it got removed. This is having right side spaces, this got removed. This is having spaces both the ends. Okay, the spaces will be removed from both the spaces, both the ends. Like, this is the difference between trim, ltrim and rtrim functions. So then translate function is going to be used to replace character by character. Translate function is going to replace character by character. If you see here, so in the when we use translate function for this string value, India, INDIA, IN is replacing with XY. So wherever we have I, it is going to replace it with X. Wherever we have N, it is going to replace with Y. Okay, so wherever we have, so this translate function is going to replace character by character. So this first character will be replaced with this character, second character will be replaced with this character. Okay, but whereas in replace function, word by word, wherever we have this word, it is going to replace with this word. Okay, replace function is going to replace word by word. Translate function is going to replace character by character. Okay, concat function. Concat function is to concatenate multiple strings. Okay, but concat function is going to concat only two string values. Okay, so more than two string values, if at all we wanted to concatenate, then we are going to use these two pipe symbols. Two pipe symbols between the column names or between the values. So that we are going to concatenate with multiple values. But when we use concatenate, when we use concat function, we can use only, will be using them to concatenate only two string values, not more than that. Okay, this ASCII char is not required. Okay. Yeah, I think this is enough for today. Substring instinct functions I'll explain tomorrow. Okay, because substring instinct functions, I wanted you guys to practice these functions first, so that the substring and instinct functions will be easily, you'll be able to understand easily. Otherwise, it will be little difficult. Okay, any questions? Anyone having any questions?